The wildfires which rage through Los Angeles have been an historic natural disaster. Many people have died and been injured in fighting the flames. Thousands of homes and businesses have been destroyed. But could this inferno have been contained? Were warnings ignored? Could lives have been saved? We ask those questions in this special programme on California burning. These scorched earth images revealed the ferocity of these fires, with communities and buildings that have stood for decades now reduced to ashes. In this programme, we see the neighbourhoods devastated and the angry residents confronting those in power.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
As the authorities warn, the death toll will certainly rise. We meet those who have lost the most.
He didn't think it was going to be that bad.
So he was inside when the fire engulfed his property?
And sleep in his bed, where he still is right now, as I wait on the corner.
We map out how and why the fires spread so quickly across the state as the Santa Ana winds and dry conditions fueled the flames. And we count the cost, with latest estimates suggesting this disaster could cost up to $150 billion. I'm in the Pacific Palisades, the worst-hit neighborhood in Los Angeles. Down the road from here is our US correspondent, Martha Kellner. And Sky's David Blevins is in Altadena, where the Eaton fire has also caused widespread damage. We'll hear from them both throughout this special programme. Now, these fires are the most destructive ever to hit Los Angeles. They have displaced tens of thousands of people and traumatised countless more. And now, as families come to terms with the scale of the devastation, the blame game has begun. Anger here is growing. Sky News was with one mother returning to her burnt-out home when she confronted the California governor, Gavin Newsom, as Martha Kellner reports.
Here. Evacuation order for Malibu, east of Las Flores.
As the emergency alerts continue unabated across Los Angeles, Rachel is returning to the Pacific Palisades.
Oh, 719 Island Street, gone.
It's been home her whole life, but she barely recognises it.
Apocalypse.
Around every corner, almost complete destruction.
This was a little cooking store thing. This is a parking lot for a center.
Firefighting planes bringing water from the ocean to tackle the blazes still raging in all parts of this city. Growing too is anger at a perceived lack of preparedness by authorities.
We shouldn't be seeing this. We shouldn't. This is where people need to wake up. Because if you're voting and you're picking people for softness or for the fuzzy feeling you got because they seem like they're good people, I want to know that we're going to have someone in charge.
Then Rachel spots a face she recognises.
Is that Gavin Newsom? That's the governor. That's the governor. Governor, I live here, governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is being criticised by some for water mismanagement as hydrants ran dry while fires multiplied.
So I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the president.
I appreciate it. I'm doing that right now. And it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter. I have 4 kids, losing the school.
Everyone who went to school there, they lost their homes. They lost 2 homes because they were living in one and building another. Governor, please tell me, what are you going to do with the president right now?
We're getting the resources to help rebuild.
Why was there no water in the hydrants, Governor?
That's all literally.
Is it going to be different next time?
It has to be. Has to be. Of course.
What are you going to do?
I'm doing
to fill the hydrants. I would fill them up personally. You know that.
I literally.
I would fill up the hydrants myself.
I would. I understand.
But would you do that?
I would do whatever I can.
But you're not. I see the. Do you know there's water dripping over there, Governor? There's water coming out there. You can use it.
Diminishing winds are bringing some respite for firefighters, but it's likely to be brief. As estimated losses surge, there is still zero containment of this fire. Officials say they don't know the death toll. Dogs will be brought in to search this rubble for fatalities. Human remains were recovered from charred rubble on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. Nearby, Jeffrey and his partner Nicole are returning to their seaside community. A little slice of paradise it was.
Each one is an individual neighbor. So this was my dearest friend Gayleen, who I've known for my whole life, 35 years. That was our clubhouse where we would play pool every Friday. That was Ben's house. These are like my closest friends here.
They sift through the dust. In a plastic box, everything they can find. A turtle figurine, a garden gnome, a house name plaque. It's very little, but in a place where the loss is so huge, it means so much.
Well, let's speak now to Martha Live. And Martha, what is it like where you are now?
Yeah, I'm on Mount Holyoke Avenue in Pacific Palisades, Jane. This is just one of dozens upon dozens of streets in these neighbourhoods that are utterly destroyed. Every house here ruined. It's actually eerily quiet. You can just hear birds in the background. And this is the street where I was around 3 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. The fires had broken out at 10:30 a.m. and so naturally we got on the road to come up here to see if we could speak to residents who were weighing up whether to evacuate or not. At this point, the flames were coming up the canyon that is just behind the street where you can see there. I was stood on the end. I was pulling up in the car and there was a lady stood at the end of the driveway where I am now, a lady called Liz Lerner, 84 years old with congestive heart failure. She actually flagged our car down and she said, I'm desperate to escape, but I just don't know how. I don't have any car, I don't have any relatives. And she was begging really for help. And we managed to find a man who was living in this house on the corner here. He was hurriedly throwing his belongings into the back of that car, suitcases, documents, and we persuaded him to help Liz evacuate. She then asked me if I could go into her house and help her with her medication, so we threw her heart medication into a plastic bag. She then asked if we could get her phone charger from under her bed, and that's what she left with. That is all that she left with from this house. And look at it now, there is nothing left. And over the past couple of days, residents have been returning here. They've seen the pictures on TV of the destruction, but nothing can quite prepare them for what they've witnessed when they see this destruction in surround sound, if you like.
Yeah, well, stay with us, Martha, because let's just remind viewers, as you were saying, you were there when these fires really took hold on Tuesday night, and this is what happened.
This is Pacific Palisades. This is one of the most expensive and exclusive communities in LA. but the blazes here are continuing unabated. There is no containment at the moment. You can hear in the background every so often loud popping noises as another structure, another house, another business goes up in flames. I can't overstate just how much of a problem the wind presents to firefighters here. Winds this evening already gusting up to 83 miles per hour, and they're expected, forecast, to get even stronger in the coming hours. And that means that it's not only a problem for the firefighters on the ground, they also had to ground their fleet of firefighting planes and helicopters. I think a very long and scary night coming up for the people, particularly of this part of LA. They don't know what level of destruction they're going to wake up to. You can just see how quickly this fire is spreading. And many of the homes and businesses here are made of wood, which means they go up incredibly quickly. And as I was saying before, a lot of this vegetation, a lot of this bush is so dry at the moment that it's contributing to this, this incredibly fast-moving, volatile event that is so unpredictable for the men and women of the LA Fire Department who are trying to put out these spot fires.
And Martha, what was it like witnessing the ferocity of those fires? It looked absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, utterly staggering. I couldn't believe how fast these flames were spreading, and not just me, the professionals couldn't believe it either. I've just been speaking to a fire captain who's here putting out some of the spot fires still going on in the Palisades. He's been a firefighter for 25 years, and he says he's never seen anything like this. And he says the wind was the main problem. These hurricane force winds that were fueling the flames as they raged through this place. And he says he was forced to make these very difficult decisions. Some houses they just let burn because there weren't enough firefighters to tackle the number of fires happening in this particular area. So he let some houses burn in order to prioritise other houses or structures that they thought, they made the calculation that could stop the wider fire spreading further.
OK, Martha, thanks very much. Remarkable coverage that Martha has brought us this week on Sky News. Well, we are in the heart of Pacific Palisades now, not far from where those images were taken. And this is the shopping heart of this community. And if you look behind me, this building here, well, let me show you an image of what this building looked like just a few days ago. This was a Ralph's convenience store, a pretty standard kind of store that you see in many American shopping malls, selling food, groceries, provisions. There's also a bit of a pizza cafe attached to it, ice cream shop. And look at it now. Absolutely decimated. The ferocity and heat of this fire has melted the steel joists supporting this building. There's a burnt-out bicycle at the front of it. Some of the signs advertising the cafe and the pizza, just paper, they've survived remarkably. And you can see even the trees around it totally scorched. And this also just highlights another problem for the people living here who've lost their properties. They may want to come back, they may be able to move back. Some of these houses, remarkably, are still standing, others burnt to a crisp. But when they do come back, where can they do their grocery shopping? Where can they fill up their cars with petrol? This whole area has been absolutely levelled, and it is the heart of the community that has been taken out of it physically by this fire, and that is what is so heartbreaking about it. Now, from here to the other side of Los Angeles is a neighbourhood where at least one of those killed used to live. Victor Shaw's body was found by the side of his home in Altadena with a hose in his hand, according to local media. Our correspondent David Blevins saw the impact of the fires there.
This is the front line in the battle to contain the fire that's still raging around Altadena. It cut a path through this suburb at an alarming pace, claiming lives as people slept. Kimiko's 82-year-old father, Rodney, thought he'd be safe. He didn't make it out.
We didn't think it was going to come this fast. It jumped over a whole park, and then it came here. It jumped over whole streets, and it hit this community, but it didn't touch the mountainside at all. And so he didn't think it was going to be that bad.
So he was inside when the fire engulfed his property.
And sleep in his bed, where he still is right now, as I wait on the corner.
Our return to the evacuation zone, a drive through a ghost town of ashes. One man had risked that journey earlier.
Everything's gone.
But was too late to save his property. There's nothing left of the place Thomas called home for the last 37 years. Is it possible to put into words how it feels to leave your home and come back and find it in this condition?
I just got off the phone with somebody, and as you can see, there's nothing left, and I've been here for about an hour and a half, and I don't want to leave. It's home. So I really can't put it into words.
Anna's grateful her family survived this, deeply conscious that some neighbours didn't.
I think it's really sad. I'm devastated for them. I'm devastated for us, but like I said, we each walked out with 2 pairs of clothing changes, and that's all that we have.
They've lost everything to the flames, apart from a few treasured possessions.
If you can see what survived back there is my dad's sacred virgin. See it way back there? She's standing?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
This area is closed.
Monte Rosa Drive remains sealed off. This was home to one of the victims, 66-year-old Victor Shaw. The residents had just moments to gather a few belongings and escape the inferno engulfing their property. Victor's sister says she pleaded with him to go, but he refused, a decision that had tragic consequences. Amid the debris, they're struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what has happened here.
You know, the things that's not replaceable is like the pictures. You know, you can't capture those moments again, but nothing's more important than having all of my family members alive.
Everything that we know and love is gone. Not just this house, my whole city gone, man. The whole thing, like everything, my whole neighborhood, everything that I grew up to love and know is burnt up.
This community had hopes for the future, but there's only despair now and questions, lots of them. They're uniting to offer shelter and can't even begin to think about how they'll rebuild their lives.
Well, let's talk to David now. And David, you've been talking to more of those evacuated from their homes. What have they been telling you?
Yes, we've spent some time at an evacuation centre in Pasadena where at least 600 of those who've been displaced from this area are currently taking shelter. There are elderly people who had to flee without their medication. There are young families who literally don't know where the next meal is coming from. And there are even pregnant women there, although they have been able to find some temporary accommodation for them in Newport Beach to try and remove them from the smoke, to keep them and their unborn children safe. The one thing that unites all of these people, Jayne, is the fact that they're not rich. They had little more than the roof over their heads, and they don't even have that now, because when they do return, this is what they're coming back to. There is absolutely nothing of their material lives remaining. So how do you even begin to think about rebuilding when the ground beneath you is ashes? Because that's literally what we're standing on here in Altadena. And when I asked one woman at that evacuation centre this morning how she was coping, she replied, well, there's always tomorrow. And to be quite frank, I don't know how anyone in this situation can muster that level of hope for the future when this is the destruction all around them.
Well, David, stay with us, because earlier in the programme we saw a confrontation with California's governor. He isn't the only official under intense pressure over these fires, because we also caught up with the LA mayor, Karen Bass, whose stony silence spoke volumes. Let's just remind our viewers of this.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home? Madam Mayor, let me ask you just again, have you anything to say to the citizens today as you return?
No. They're gonna come. Ma'am, hold on 1 second.
Madam Mayor, just a few words for the citizens today as you return to deal with the catastrophe.
Can you take this down?
So, David, just tell us, what has she said since then?
Well, she's still a woman under pressure, of course, because there are questions, lots of them, about the apparent lack of preparation, the apparent delay in responding to this. And that frustration has been fueled by the inadvertent issuing of an evacuation alert to all of Los Angeles County, which then had to be retracted. So there's very little confidence in officials right now. And the fire department has its job to do. The police have their job to do, because there are these reports of suspected arson and at least 20 people arrested for looting homes that have survived the blaze. But in terms of the politics, the mayor is pleading with citizens to put their faith in their elected officials to deal with this. And President Biden has rode to her response. He says it's a very complicated situation, and it is perhaps even more complicated by the fact that he will be exiting the White House in just 10 days' time, handing the keys to President-elect Donald Trump.
Yeah, indeed. David, thanks very much. Well, let's just take a closer look now at the devastating consequences of the wildfires through satellite imagery and before and after photographs of burnt-out buildings. And these have all been geolocated by Sky's Data and Forensics Unit. Take a look at this. On the left of your screen, you can see buildings near Marathon Road in Altadena. On the right, the same area after the outbreak of the Eaton fire. Look on the left, and there are houses, swimming pools, shrubbery, typical Californian suburban life. On the right, the same area with the same clearly defined roundabout, but reduced to rubble. Those bright blue swimming pools now turned to black. Next is the area near Fair Oaks Avenue, also in Altadena. Prior to the fires, this time on the right, the satellite catches an infrared image, allowing it to focus in on the hot spots as the fire rages and smoke blocks the view. But what about at the ground level? On the left, we can see two mansions on the coastal highway. And on the right, they are burnt to the very ground, the real consequences of this ongoing natural disaster. And it's not just homes, of course, but all aspects of family life too. Here we see the Altadena Community Church, now without windows or roof, just an external shell. Moving south to Pacific Palisades, close to us, we see a local Starbucks in the central business area of the neighbourhood. On the left, previously a vibrant, colourful hub. On the right, now a burnt-out shell. And there's no respite for famous landmarks either. Here's Sunset Boulevard in the central business area of Palisades. Its buildings destroyed and stained by smoke. Well, in this programme, we've heard from normal families who've lost homes and loved ones. And we've just heard from some of the high-profile celebrities affected too. But for some of those reporting on the story, this is highly personal as well. My colleague at NBC News, Jason Soboroff, has been surveying the destruction of the place where he grew up in Pacific Palisades, including his childhood home.
I grew up in Pacific Palisades, born and raised here, and I've never seen anything like this. We've had a lot of fires and even evacuated sometimes, but nothing like this. The whole town is gone as we knew it. This is the Palisades Public Library. It's still on fire. I brought my kids here. This was like the pride of the community when this thing was built. The weight of it all, I think, is very, very intense to think about.
In my 26 years, this could be one of the top, most devastating fires I've seen.
What happens in a situation like this where the high school's destroyed, you got churches destroyed, you got the 2 supermarkets in the community destroyed? How do you come back from something like this?
They come back one day at a time.
To me, Sunset Boulevard is the heart of my community. There's not a single house left standing here. What do you do? What do they do? There's just never, ever, ever been anything like this.
I mean, I know my house is gone, but I kind of just need to see it firsthand to just let it set in. I just can't believe it.
I thought I was going to wake up this morning and it's going to be a bad dream.
This is the first time that I've seen the house that I grew up in, and I don't really know what to say. Mom, look at this.
Is that Frontera?
Yeah.
Your birth house?
Yep.
Oh, I'm so sad. Every one of you guys was born in that house.
I know, it makes me sad too. This was a really, really special place for the Sobroff family, and I'm very sorry to see it go. And I'm very sorry for all of the residents of Pacific Palisades and everyone across the greater LA area that's going through this right now. I look around the town, the neighborhood, the place that I grew up in. I talk to my friends who I spend so much time with on these streets, and it's hard to imagine what comes next and what happens next.
Yeah, Jason Sobroff reminding us that what people have lost here is not just bricks and mortar and possessions, but it's treasured memories as well. Now, one question being asked after these fires is what role climate change played in contributing to their severity. Drought and strong winds were significant factors, but we've also now had confirmation that last year was the hottest on record and the first to breach a key global warming target, reaching 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Here is our science and technology editor, Tom Clark.
Wildfire tearing through one of the world's wealthiest and most celebrated cities is staggering. But the latest evidence from the EU's Climate Monitoring Service suggests the fires aren't remarkable just because of where they are, but why. Last year was the hottest ever recorded. Not everywhere, as this map of air temperatures shows, but averaged out, 2024 was 1.6 degrees warmer than pre-industrial times. Look at that data another way, and you can see just how anomalously warm 2023 and 2024 were. The analysis also found that that warmer atmosphere also held the highest moisture levels ever recorded, 5% more than the 30-year average. Moisture that must fall as rain, causing 2024's extreme flooding, like here in Valencia in Spain, and places where that rain didn't fall, like East Africa, just had to deal with extreme heat and record drought. Our climate has become alien to us.
What we've seen last year is unprecedented, actually, in human history. You would have to go back hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, to find a planet that has had an equally high or higher temperature, and this would be a totally different world where continents were in different places and there were no human societies.
Much of that extreme weather is governed by our oceans. Compared to the 30-year average, that's this line here, the ocean warming we've seen is stark. But this is important too. Many of these peaks and troughs are linked to a natural phenomenon called El Niño, La Niña in the Pacific Ocean. The 2023-24 warm spike was partly boosted by El Niño. But look how a typically cooler La Niña period failed to bring global temperatures down by much in this warmer world. El Niño also rules California weather, but climate change has upped the extremes. Last winter, they had plenty of rain, but with the La Niña phase now, rain is falling further north, whereas in LA, there's been drought. Last year's heat and rain boosted vegetation growth, an unusually warm, dry winter, creating perfect conditions for fire, whether started by accident, arson, or nature. At the end of this year, world leaders meet in Brazil to try once again to cooperate in slowing global warming. It's a process America's next president wants not just to withdraw from, but halt. Could what's happening in Los Angeles change his thinking?
Tom Clark there, we shall certainly see and look ahead to what President Trump does decide. Well, it does feel like in some parts of Los Angeles, they are starting to get some of the fires more under control. We've seen here, as well as firefighters from this area, we've seen airport firefighters coming in. The Army has been drafted in. We've had firefighters come from all of the neighbouring counties as well. But with 10 people dead, so many injured and so many thousands displaced, the impact, of course, is absolutely extraordinary. And on top of that, now there is this acrid smell that is in the air and is likely to remain for days and days. This is affecting everybody across the whole of Los Angeles. And what has become clear over the course of the last couple of days is that for many people, insurance is a real issue. People may have lost everything and they may not have insurance because lots of the insurance companies are now not insuring these properties. And it does lead you to think, what is the future for communities like this in Pacific Palisades? This was a really desirable place to live, the kind of places that we've heard in the programme people wanted to move to bring up their families, to make their homes and to make memories. But as we move forward with climate change and with what the insurers are doing, will people still want to move here? And as these houses are rebuilt, will they be able to rebuild these communities? Will that possibly be the desperate legacy of these ferocious fires?